told you about Regis. We've told you about the virtual office, the virtual service that can be offered. It's a new concept most of us don't understand. We as Filipinos, basically, and businessmen, are limited to what we call the hotels and the lobby of the hotels. Now, of course, with the onset of McDonald's and Starbucks, we started drinking more caffeine and started loading up on a lot of burgers and fries. That didn't do well for the weight, and it did well for the consumerism because clothes were rebought. But that's not what the issue is about. It's about a service that comes across. At this point, I would like to take the opportunity to go into the profession, the background of the man that stands behind this terrific business that's already in place right now. Lars, now I know you're a marketing man.
Yep.
Coca-Cola background. My father was in Coca-Cola for about a good half century, 25, 30 years of his life. What were you in Coke? What did you do?
With the Coca-Cola company here in the Philippines, I was director within marketing at a time where Coca-Cola realized that brand equity was also very much about what was going on at retail level. And because I further back in my career have specialized in sari-sari stores in this country.
How did you get into sari-sari stores, Lars?
Oh, Harry, I'm a specialist in sari-sari stores. I came down here in 1992 where for a Danish trading company, they had already, just a brief background, I was 20 years old, became a trainee at the corporate head office in Copenhagen. After 2 years, they sent me to New York for 2.5 years, Los Angeles 1 year, and then 2.5 years in Japan in consumer goods.
Wow, terrific. Huh? What a nice turnaround, all the different countries.
Yes, but then I came, my goal was to move to one of the 5 original ASEAN countries, and it really only succeeded after all those years with my arrival here in September 92. And that was a pre-operational activity to take over as the sole distributor of Philip Morris cigarettes. And that is basically sold one stick at a time, as we all know, predominantly from sari-sari stores. So we had...
You penetrated the actual sari-sari store.
I personally visited about 5,000 sari-sari stores. I walked barangays of Tondo, Caloocan, all over Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao.
Wow. Yes. You should have run for office, but go ahead. So you went around, you got a feel of the actual trading.
Yes, yes.
And the owners, you're talking to all the independent owners.
You talk to the independent owners, you get an extreme good feel for what are the key enablers. And for a sari-sari store, for example, and that's very much so also for bigger business here, it's about cash flow.
Yes.
I mean, can you get a little bit of credit, and if so, how can that be allowed? Because a big supplier will not know each and every single sari-sari store, so there are many levels through that value chain.
Inadvertently, you got to know the culture of the Filipino, going down to the grassroots.
From bottom up.
Yeah, literally bottom up.
Exactly grassroots.
Yeah, literally grassroots.
Yes.
And how did you, coming from a first world country, how did you deal with the changes? I mean, you're training in New York, California, I mean, all over. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're down to the barrio, you're walking down, and you're talking to Aling Nene down there, and cash flow because it's hand to mouth. How did you deal with this cultural complexity and difference?
Yeah, but I never tried to be the CEO of Apple or similar, but I don't think that there's a big difference between whether you are the CEO of a big IT company or whether you're trying to understand a sari-sari store. I mean, either you find 2 or 3 key enablers that make that business tick and succeed, and you are able to put words on so that even a 10-year-old will say, "Siempre naman."
I now expect you should know more Filipino words, going down to at least 5,000 sari-sari stores.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they were not all in Tagalog-speaking areas. So
typical of the Philippines. That's right, the different dialects you're telling me.
Yeah.
You found that, did you find that weird? Is it the same also in other countries?
No, of course it is quite extreme here, but it is not something that faces you as much because people generally speak English, and people generally here also like to meet and talk, and people here are very warm and appreciate the fact that you show interest. So it's always very interesting conversations, and every time I got to a new province, I was raised on a farm, so it was always a little bit interesting also to see a pepper field.
How do you mean you were raised on a farm?
Back in Denmark, yeah.
What did you raise?
We mostly cultivated grain. I personally, as a boy, also had a lot of animals and did a
Really?
lot of wheeling dealing there, yes.
You're from a farm into the heart of New York, all the way around across America, through Europe, Japan no less, which is first world and very quick, and into the Philippines.
Yep.
And of all things, the number one consumer product being Coca-Cola and the cigarette industry,
Yep.
Even before Coke. And you didn't find any difficulty. It was no big deal for you.
Perfect balance here, I must say, because of the human factor is so much greater here because of the accessibility to people. People are very accommodating, like to have the dialogue, appreciate the interest, follow very much their heart. And so here you can basically strike the right balance between being a business professional and conducting business in a manner that is as productive, as developing as possible. In a way where, you juggle and balance heart with mind in a way that is much more along my way of being relative to New York or Tokyo or Copenhagen or Hong Kong or Singapore or other places.
As
where I
a
worked.
profession, where do you enjoy working? As a professional, not as a person first.
Okay.
Not your being, not your
Right.
person, not Lars Wittig, but
Right.
as the professional.
Yeah.
Where?
As the professional, being an entrepreneur by heart also, I must say always the Philippines. And my third...
Philippines, huh?
And I moved here, just like many OFWs, I'm a returnee. So the third time I moved here, so second time I returned, it was literally my own choice. I became country manager for Regis subsequently to that.
But you came in first because it was country first choice.
Country first choice. And the reason is, just like the dream team that I have now, and I mean in just over 2 years we've tripled.
You're able to create
We have
it.
tripled the business here. It is because I believe that there is a way that a Filipino team can be much more productive than any other cultures that I have worked in, including Europe, meaning
But
Denmark.
how do you handle the poverty that you see, visual poverty, especially urban poverty? It's difficult to see them on the streets begging.
I've seen much more than that because don't forget I walked the barangays to visit the 5,000
Well, there you go. No,
So-
but
so-
the poor
so
in
I
the
have seen it
province,
all,
those
yeah.
different. The rural poor,
Yeah.
at least they can eat.
First of all, you have to be, I find it as a mission, an obligation to contribute and be a member of several NGOs, which I am. And I'm very active, and I'm still out there opening a new freshwater wells and so
Till
on.
now.
In the city centers,
Yes.
in the most congested, lowest D&E
You don't
areas.
find the poverty disgusting, the poor, the way they are?
well,
'Cause
of
coming
course-
from a first world country.
Well,
I'm
I am, of course it is incredibly sad, and that is also
Yes.
what is driving it all. And now we basically have, Harry, to talk about inclusive growth. And
Yes.
with the population growth, there was only 65 million when I moved here the first time, 85 million when I came the second time, and now we have
It's 100, yeah.
and now we have 107
Yeah.
million people.
Yes.
So even though the economy is doing so much better, we still have had the same number of poor people.
Yes, and growing.
But, however, actually, Harry, we finally saw an improvement. 2.5 million people lifted out of poverty. That's the first time we actually see a dent in those numbers. And that I find most encouraging. Eventually, that will also mean that hopefully, we will continue that trend. And as poverty is lifted into middle class, then of course, eventually we will also start be in the need of even more qualified people than those that we already have tapped into. And here I have another interesting observation, namely the 10 million overseas Filipino workers, because right now they're contributing in a very high degree.
Yes, very high.
With overseas remittances, but that's nothing to the contribution that they will provide when they come back with the know-how and the training that they have attained from abroad. They will hit the ground running here.
How do you find the Filipino as a businessman, as a worker, the basic Filipino, the available talent? Is there a lack of it, or is there so much of it? Without the OFWs coming back, like you were saying, before they hit the ground running. How do you find, is there a shortage of quality stuff?
Well, I would say The quality staff is there, the talent is there. It is all a question about how the individuals decide to apply their talent. Because when the average...
Do you have problems employing people, for example?
I would say general managers at the age of 28, 30 years old and above, no problem at all. I'm extremely happy and proud of the team that I have gathered. Younger than that, then
It becomes problematic.
then it becomes more problematic because they don't remember how it was back in 92 or 98 when I also worked here.
They take you for granted that you're a nice guy and whatnot, and then you see. But the discipline of the Filipino worker, that does not become a problem for you.
Well,
Assuming he even has that discipline.
If it is a problem, it's definitely my problem because that's just a matter about
Training.
Understanding the people. And that is why you asked me if I, from a
nice
professional point of view, where would you like to work, Lars?
Yeah.
And I said here. And that's because I really see how Filipinos professionals can apply fantastic discipline.
So you believe it's really just the management, because if management is good and competent, it can train, guide, and put together the right staff.
Yes.
Because the discipline or the makings of the Filipinos already there.
Absolutely.
The innate.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. It's a compliment to the Filipino. Lars, we're going to have to end the show. You know, talking with you, 45, 50 minutes, it's like 2-3 minutes on the on-start only. You know, you're never for loss of words or ideas. I have to keep sharp to try and follow and ask you the right question. And thank you very much for being here. What would you like to give us a message to our viewers, whether it be the economy, the people, the sufferings, the cynicism, the political scenario as you read and as it unfolds in the newspaper? What exit message would you like to give the country people? That camera.
Oh, thank you. I think it is extremely important that the Philippines stays the course. I mean, we cannot afford suddenly to go back and revisit the old times in terms of increased corruption. We need to make sure that that the investments take place into the infrastructure. And otherwise, I must say, it's very little negative or that I can point out. Everything is the way it should be in order to continue this course. And then the inclusive growth will take place, and we will see poverty decline and hopefully eventually be more or less eliminated.
Thank you very much, Lars. Ladies and gentlemen, see, unlike me, Lars believes in the glass half full. Now, that's the way it has to be. That's the correct way. I tend to complain about everything from my hair, losing it, the color, my weight, my clothes. Then again, maybe I'm just a complainer. But, hey, everyone's made differently. But he's correct. We have to look at the good side, and we have to look at what is correct. Inclusive growth, we hope, while you have the growing population, unfortunately the poor. It is true. The statistics say that we have lifted 2.5 million out of poverty. Now, whether that's never been done, that statement is very powerful if it's never been done, and rightfully so, it hasn't in the last 4 or 5 decades. And if this could be sustained, in no time will we be there. Our politics is confusing, without a doubt. The discipline, the virtues are still lacking. The examples, however, are available, and they're glaring. We talked about initially an opportunity called the ASEAN integrity, the ASEAN integration, and again, the virtual office that Regis does offer, which makes business a reality, no longer such a dream. We hope you've enjoyed and learned a lot about the business concept and about my complaining. Well, maybe that's why it's called Talk to Harry, and that's why maybe it's called About Politics. I don't want to blame anyone. I always do at the end of the show, even at the beginning, even in the middle. But I'll let it go this time. I'm going to try to keep a straight face and smile and look for the good. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed Lars Wittig, Regis International, right here on GNN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry.
You are what you watch.